Good evening. Welcome to the meeting of the Skokie Village Board for Monday, March the 1st, 2021. It is 8:02 p.m. Normally we start our meetings at 8 p.m. promptly. However, we had some technical difficulties, so it is now 8:02 p.m. Until further notice, meetings of the Skokie Village Board will be held electronically with a majority of village officials participating via remote access in order to comply with the State of Illinois Gubernatorial Disaster Proclamation. Members of the public who wish to comment as to an item on the published agenda or to comment during public comments must submit their statement or question in writing to the village manager's office, and all properly submitted questions or statements will be presented and read during the relevant portion of the meeting. Written comments may be submitted by email to citizencomments@skokie.org. Let me repeat that, citizencomments@skokie.org, before or during the meetings. By mail to the Village of Skokie Village Manager's Office, 5127 Oakton, Skokie, 60077, or via the village's drop box located by the public entry to Village Hall. And now, it's my pleasure to introduce Village Clerk Pramod Shah, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The meeting will come to order, and the clerk will please call the roll.
Trustee Roberts?
Here.
Trustee Sutker?
Here.
Trustee Ulrich?
Here.
Trustee Bromberg?
Here.
Trustee Klein?
Here.
Trustee Gray Keeler?
Here.
Mayor Van Dusen?
Here, we have a quorum. Next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda for this evening's meeting. A motion is in order. Trustee Bromberg, seconded by Trustee Roberts. Is there anything on the consent agenda anybody would like to have removed? If not, call the roll, please.
Trustee Roberts?
Aye.
Trustee Sutker?
Aye.
Trustee Ulrich?
Aye.
Trustee Bromberg?
Aye.
Trustee Klein?
Aye.
Trustee Gray Keeler?
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen?
Aye, the motion passes. The next item on the agenda is report of our village manager, John Lockerbie.
Thank you, Mayor Van Dusen, and good evening, everyone. This evening, the first item is a report by our Director of Health and Human Services, Mike Charlie, to provide the most up-to-date information regarding the COVID vaccines.
Good evening, everybody. For trustees, Mike Charlie, Director of Health and Human Services, and I'm here to provide, like John said, an update on COVID-19 and where we are as a village and as a Health and Human Services Department. For the agenda for tonight, I'll be going over the Skokie data that I've been presenting in the past. I'll also talk very briefly about Restore Illinois update, some vaccine updates, and updates on our clinic where we're administering doses of vaccine to the public. First, let's talk about the data. Currently to date, the village of Skokie has 5,469 confirmed cases of COVID-19, 112 deaths. The good news, if there is any good news about COVID, is that the 7-day moving average is down to 10 cases a day. Again, on the following page, You'll see that in November, we were upwards of about 58 cases per day on a 7-day moving average. So this is really good news. The Skokie positivity rate is at 2.68%. This is the lowest it's been since September 15th. And when I look back at data, there were really only 2 other times over the last 12 months about where we saw a positivity rate this low. So all good indicators showing that we're doing a lot better in regards to COVID-19 in Skokie. Just as a former reference, I did add that Cook County positivity rate is slightly higher at 3.5%. This chart, again, I've been showing this at every meeting, but I think it's relevant. You can see sort of where in November we certainly had a large number of cases. Our positivity rate was high. We saw a pretty high transmission rate in Skokie and really around the country and around the state of Illinois. But we've sort of plateaued over the last week or two, where we're sort of sticking around that 10 cases per day plateau. On a state call this morning, when Dr. Ezike, the IDPH health director, noted was that the state is experiencing the same exact thing, sort of this plateau of cases where it's decreased, but it's sort of sticking around. With the state, it's right around 1,500 cases a day. But again, it's almost amazing when you take our chart and you place it right next to the state's chart, and they're pretty much identical. We're still Illinois update. So this is the governor's plan that has deals with the business community, and right now the Region 10, which is the Cook region, which we're in, is now under Phase 4 resurgence mitigations. This is one step away from Phase 5, which would be back to normal. So bars and restaurants, indoor dining is now allowed. A bar or restaurant's capacity is based on how many tables they can fit, 6 feet apart. You can have up to 10 person per party limit. Theaters and meetings, it's up to 50 guests maximum, or 50% of overall theater performance space capacity, being 50 being the most. Now, again, the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity have a website, has a ton of information for all the different business types. If I were to present on all those different business types tonight, I would be up here for the next 30 minutes. I'd encourage anybody interested in other business types to go visit, like I said, the DCEO, or Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity website. This is just a chart showing the different phases. We're currently in Phase 4, which is called revitalization by the governor's office. So for a vaccine update. So if residents have questions regarding COVID-19, we first encourage them to visit our website. Our communications director, Ann Tennis, does a wonderful job in maintaining that website. We update it very often, almost daily, with frequently asked questions. We certainly are okay with residents calling our COVID-19 hotline, which is that 847-779-7726, or emailing us at covid19@skokie.org. But I do want to strongly encourage residents to go visit our webpage first, where most questions can be answered on our webpage. Another thing residents can do is subscribe for our Skokie news by visiting Skokie's website. From what I understand from Ann Tennis, our subscriptions have gone up significantly during COVID. And I think that's a really good way. Every Tuesday, Ann and I work on an update and send it out to residents. And occasionally during COVID, we've also sent updates out on Fridays. So let's talk about the Skokie vaccination process. So again, we encourage residents to pre-register on a list we have. It's a very simple, quick survey. We have 32,000 people, plus Skokie residents that have registered already. What happens then is if you meet the criteria for vaccination, which currently in Skokie is, and we're doing this in a phased approach, is Phase 1A and 1B. The village will contact people on the list in the order in which they registered, and they must qualify, like I said, in order, as soon as vaccine becomes available, to register for an appointment. It's worked out really well. I think we've done a good job in keeping up that list and notifying people. The biggest factor in preventing Skokie from vaccinating quicker is the vaccine supply. There was a period of about 2-3 weeks here where, because of a number of reasons, one, manufacturing by the pharmaceutical companies, and also because of the winter storms, that reduced the number of vaccines we had been receiving. I mean, there was a week there where we didn't receive any vaccine. So it's hard to vaccinate people when you don't get any vaccine. I did want to mention too, just to reassure the public and the board, that as soon as we get vaccine, we are pushing it out. We are not storing any vaccine here. We don't have thousands of doses in the basement of Village Hall secured in the freezer. We have just enough the vaccine for the following week. We are not stockpiling. So I just want to talk about the phases really quick again, because we are in phases 1A and 1B. I'm going to call it 1B Part 1, because there is a phase 1B Part 2, which we haven't moved to yet. But if you look at this part, phase 1A is healthcare workers. Phase 1B are persons 65 years and older and frontline essential workers. And those are the two phases we're vaccinating right now. We had around 20,000 people that were registered just as 1A and 1Bs. And we haven't even received that much vaccine yet. So we have not moved to phase 1B Part 2. The governor's office recently said that effective February 25th, some areas of the state were ready to start vaccinating phase 1B Part 2, which is persons 16 to 64 with underlying medical conditions. And he made that change because there were certain counties in southern Illinois who had gotten through all phase 1A and phase 1B, which were a higher priority group. So that allowed those counties to move forward. But in Northeast Illinois, including Chicago, Cook County, Lake County, DuPage County, all of these collar counties around health departments have decided not to move to phase 1B Part 2 yet, just because there's so many people still needing vaccinations. Phase 1C, which is other essential workers. So there's essential workers and then there's other essential workers. The essential workers in phase 1B are the frontline workers that come into contact with people and are more exposed. The other essential workers are people maybe that don't come into contact as much with the public and are less at risk. And then phase 2 is the rest of the population. So we will get to those people eventually. We certainly hope to be receiving more vaccine. Our current clinic has the capacity to vaccinate way more people than the vaccine we're getting. And we have plans on increasing our hours and increasing our days so that we push out as much vaccine as possible when it is available. Speaking of vaccine, we have delivered 3,750 doses to North Shore University Healthcare. That was done so that they could vaccinate their phase 1A, which is the top tier or highest priority of their staff. In Skokie itself, 300 doses were transferred out to our federally qualified health centers. Those are the facilities that treat our underserved or underserved, underinsured, and uninsured. We have vaccinated 8,979, we have administered 8,979 doses at our site. We've administered 5,654 first doses and 3,325 second doses. And we continue to administer the doses as soon as we get them. Again, we're not stockpiling. So what about Johnson & Johnson? That seems to be in the news these days. Just on February 27th, they received their emergency use authorization from the FDA, which is really good news because it adds a third vaccine available for us to receive and the state to distribute and for us to start administering. It's a single-dose vaccine. The good news is that it's a one and done. It certainly is more efficient in administration, requires refrigeration of 36 to 46 degrees of up to 3 months. If you remember, the Pfizer has this ultra cold, has to be kept very cold in an ultra cold freezer, and the Moderna has to be kept frozen. It is an 18 years and older product. Global efficiency. So the global efficiency is at about 66%. But in the United States, the efficacy of it was about 72% in the studies versus 94 or 95% for Pfizer and Moderna. Now, just keep in mind that when Johnson & Johnson was conducting their studies, there were different strains of the virus around the world, whereas when Pfizer and Moderna were conducting their studies, there weren't the variants around the world. So that may be one of the reasons. The good news is it's 85% effective against severe disease, and it's 100% effective in preventing death. Protecting against moderate to severe disease starts about 2 weeks after people get vaccinated. And after 4 weeks, there were no hospitalizations or death with this product, which is really huge, because certainly the goal of these products is not only to prevent the spread of disease, but also to prevent people from being hospitalized or getting severely ill. Did you skip a slide? Okay. This slide right here, vaccine will be shipped immediately. They said delivering more than 20 million doses to the U.S., and they promised 100 million doses the first half of 2021. Now, people may be asking, well, when is the health department going to receive their Johnson & Johnson? Well, what I can tell you is the latest update from this morning's state call is that the state was going to be meeting with the CDC later this week, and then they'd have more information. So I don't know. It could be as soon as 2 weeks from now is what I'm being told, but we don't really know yet. What is the message for all available vaccines? So this is important, and I think this is good for consumer confidence with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine if we do get it and we do administer this. Vaccine experts agree that all vaccines provide very good protection by the most important measure, which is whether they keep people from getting seriously ill. And I would also add being hospitalized or dying. So, questions about COVID-19, you can skip this, I already went over this. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the vaccine side again. We're at 7770 Frontage Road. Our vaccine administration is by appointment only, so please, nobody just show up. You need an appointment first. It really hasn't happened that often, which is good news. And our clinics have been, I know I'm the director of health, but really it's been a fine old machine. We have 52 volunteers and staff working at our clinic, every clinic, and it's run super, super well. We've got a ton of compliments from residents, and we really appreciate that. We have started using what's called EMS Track. In early February, we started using the state's EMS Track system. We were using a system that we used for flu clinics in the past. This EMS Track system was built just for COVID-19. And it's a way for us to, for people to register for appointments, for us to check people in. One of the key things about EMS Track in regards to efficiencies is that it allows us, once people are through our clinic, we use tablets or like iPads, tablets at our dispensing location. As soon as people check out from the vaccination, information gets directly uploaded to a system called iCare, which is the state's immunization database, which saves us a ton of time internally because we don't have to upload that information or enter it. Next, Nick, please. Like I said, the clinic is running well. We can process approximately 200 persons through our clinic per hour, which is really extraordinary. We've been operating our clinic on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, up to 5 hours of vaccination time per day. Again, we're limited in the hours based upon the vaccine we're getting. As soon as we get more vaccine, we can increase hours and increase days. But until then, that's what we've been doing. So we can push through about 1,000 persons an hour in a very safe manner. People come to our clinic and we keep them spaced 6 feet apart, and they leave there. Usually it's about, from start to finish, it's about 30 minutes. So we've been moving really quickly. Again, the single biggest limiting factor is just we're not getting the vaccine. Volunteer recruitment, I thought I'd repeat this again, that we're looking for volunteers. We've had an amazing turnout. We've got, I think, like 60 medical professionals and a bunch of other non-medical professionals to apply. And we will be using these individuals not only in our clinic, but we also have a need for phone takers here at Village Hall. So I really do appreciate everyone that's applied to volunteer so far through our Medical Reserve Corps. And that's my updates for tonight, and I'd be certainly happy to answer any questions the board has.
Any questions? Trustee Sutker.
Hi, Mike. Thank you for everything. I do have a question about like this idea of like boosters for the vaccine somewhere down the road and how that, I'm assuming that you have to stay with the same manufacturer, and they're talking about boosters maybe in the fall. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, I mean, I know that Pfizer and Moderna are researching boosters, but I haven't heard anything other than that. And hopefully by the fall, if they do have boosters, we have the infrastructure built where private providers and hospitals and FQHCs are administering it by then. That certainly is the plan in general for the original doses themselves also, that by the fall, we transition a little bit from local health departments administering to providers.
One of the questions I got was if somebody were to get a Johnson & Johnson vaccine, would they be able to later get a Moderna or Pfizer to have more efficacy? And I didn't know the answer. And maybe you don't either.
I mean, right now, they're saying that you should stick with the same product. They have said that it's not going to hurt you to get your second dose being either one, but I don't think they have enough data really to know what the efficacy of using two different products are at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Greg Healer.
I'm going to compliment you again on how well the clinics are being run, and I completely understand. I've answered the phones a number of times, the frustration of people because the vaccine is not available. I was just wondering if you have an answer we can give people on, is Skokie the same as everyone else in not receiving the vaccines? Are we receiving comparable to other communities?
Yeah, so the distribution of vaccine in Illinois is population-based. So if you looked at the numbers, so DuPage County Health Department or Cook County Health Department would receive the same amount of vaccine as the village of Skokie based on population. There are a few exceptions to that rule. There are a few really, really hard-hit areas. I always use Cicero as an example because I know that they've been hit really hard, where they have set up National Guard sites, where because of that, they have received slightly more than the village of Skokie, but in general, it's population-based.
Thank you.
Trustee Roberts.
Hi, Mike. I had a brief conversation with Chief Hoflich this week, and I was pleased to find out that some of our paramedics may be helping with vaccinating individuals in our congregate care homes in Skokie, who seem to be some of the most vulnerable people in our community. So is that kind of part of the plan as vaccine becomes available, or how is that going to roll out?
Yeah, so there's a couple different groups of congregate care. We have our long-term care and assisted living facilities that have been vaccinated through the federal Walgreens program. So Walgreens has visited all 7 of our long-term care facilities, and at least twice and up to a third time where they're vaccinating staff and residents. And then with our Skokie group homes, we originally had a special date just for group home. I think we have over 30 group homes where we had them come in and for their first dose, and then the second dose, the fire department, it was Kathy Fergala and Jeff from the fire department who helped us out, where they're going out this week to complete second doses at about, excuse me, for about 200 plus staff and residents of group homes. So yeah, so that's the plan for that at this point. I mean, those are our 2 major populations of congregate care, and I think we're hitting them all.
That's great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mike.
Well, thank you so much, everybody.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah, and thanks everyone for your support and help.
And hopefully
Appreciate it.
you get some sleep. Thank you.
Item B is regarding the 2020 tax levy abatement ordinance. The village has authorized through separate bond ordinances to levy property taxes in the amount of $4,108,937.50. This is excluding $1,198,300 for the library renovation and any special service areas. The 4.1 is to cover annual interest and principal payments for the 2013 A Series, 2016 A Series, 2018 A Series, and 2019 A Series of general obligations bonds. Since 1990, the village has maintained a long-standing policy of freezing the property tax levy in the amount of $15.4 million, and the village has already directed the Cook County Assessor to levy $14,898,512 for general corporate purposes and pension funding for tax year 2020. This leaves a total of $558,183 to be levied for the funding of principal and interest on outstanding bonds. Thus, a total of $3,550,740.50 is presented to the board for abatement. At this time, the library's levy of $1,198,300 for the renovation project is not included in the village's frozen levy and as such not abated. Once approved, the ordinance must be communicated to the county assessor prior to the end of March. The authorizing ordinance is presented this evening for first reading and review, with the second reading for the mayor and board consideration and at the next board meeting on March 15th.
Are there any comments or questions of Julian? Julian Prende, our Director of Finance, is with us. Trustee Roberts.
Hi, Julian. Actually, it's amazing what you learn when you're around City Hall. Sometimes we had a brief conversation, but what I learned today, Julian, and maybe you can comment, is just with the bond market being what it is with low interest rates, I asked you about refinancing our bonds, and I didn't realize that there's a 10-year cap on these bonds, so these would not be eligible to refinance at this time. Is that right?
That is correct, Trustee. Yes, we find giving a 10-year window where refinancing is not possible lands us the best interest rates on the bond deals we've done so far. The closest bond issue we have that would be eligible for refinance is the 2013 series. That 10-year lock puts it out to 2022, 2023 window. Although I should note that 2013 series, we're paying between 3 and 3.5% interest on those bonds. If the market continues the way it is for the next couple of years, then we will most certainly look at refinancing those in 2022, 2023, and the rest of the issues when they come. But yes, typically the issuers like that 10-year window because it guarantees them some interest, and in return, they offer lower interest rates for that first 5-year window.
Okay, and this will be up for second reading next meeting.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Item C is a public hearing to consider amendments to the plan of operation and governance for the electricity aggregation program. And Liz Zimmerman, our Assistant to the Public Works Director, is back this evening to conduct the second public hearing regarding this matter. And following the public hearing, there is a request to adopt a resolution authorizing the execution of the plan of operation and governance for the electricity aggregation program.
Thank you for having me back. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I was having some technical difficulties earlier today. Tonight is the second hearing to approve the amendments to the plan of operation and governance. We also call it the POGO for the new electricity aggregation program. Approval of the amended POGO is simply a required step to enter into a contract with an alternate electrical supplier. And just to provide a recap of where we're at in the process, the first public hearing was held on Tuesday, February 16th. a memorandum explaining the new electric aggregation program. A copy of the POGO were included in the agenda packet. And I also made a brief PowerPoint presentation on just how the new electric aggregation 2.0 program works. And that's also available to watch on skokie.org. The original memorandum, a copy of the POGO, and a printout of the PowerPoint presentation were also included in the agenda packet for tonight's meeting. I just want to note that the POGO is not a contract approval. The next step for the consortium is to release an RFP. We're looking to do that as early as next week, and that would be posted on the Highland Park website. Once we get those back, a subcommittee is going to score those proposals, and approval of a contract with an alternate supplier would come back to you as the board at a later date. We're anticipating that would be mid-April, maybe the second board meeting in April. We would also have more information on the timeline and a little bit more information on the opt-out letters and enrollment at that time. And I just wanted to spend a few minutes. I did receive some questions about the program after the presentation from the last meeting. Trustee Roberts had a few questions. The first one was how many Skokie accounts will qualify for the program? And just to recap with electric aggregation 2.0, letters are only going to be sent to those accounts that are considered to be a low cost to serve. And a low cost to serve would generally be accounts using electricity at off-peak hours or condos and apartments, especially those where the landlord would pay the air conditioning costs. So Skokie has about 26,000 residential and small business accounts. Of those, about 4,800 are currently enrolled with an alternate energy supplier, and they would not be eligible for the 2.0 program. So of the remaining accounts, that would leave about 13 to 14,000 eligible accounts that would be receiving the opt-out letter for the program. The second question is, why is the electric aggregation program opt-out and the community solar program opt-in? I'm actually not sure if it's a state mandate for the program to be opt-in for solar, but I do know that there's not enough community solar available to be an opt-out program. There just isn't enough available solar energy for that, but I can research further whether that's a state mandate or not. The third question is, what percentage of Skokie's electricity comes from renewable sources like wind and solar? So the Illinois Renewable Portfolio Standard, it's also known as the RPS, is maintained by the Illinois Power Agency and also the utilities, so ComEd. The statewide goal for RPS is to be 25% renewable by the year 2025. Compliance is met through the utilities' purchase of renewable energy credits, which we also call RECs. And this year, the target is 17.5%, so we're inching towards that 25%. However, actual compliance is typically less. It is less due to rate caps on consumers to help protect cost inflation for consumers. And there's more detailed information. It's quite extensive on why. And that's available at the Illinois Power Agency, also the IPA website. And if you look for the 2020 IPA RPS funding and budget update, there's more information on those renewable energy portfolios. And then the final question was, in what ways can this aggregation agreement increase the direct supply of renewable energy in Skokie? And this might seem like an easy question. It's a little bit more complicated. The savings generated from the price match option that we're going to have on the RFP can be used to purchase renewable energy credits. However, we're part of a very large electric grid, And the current sources for renewable energy credits are not in state. And so truly the only way to increase the direct supply of renewable energy to Skokie residents is to deploy renewable energy resources directly to homes and businesses. And what I mean by that is solar panels on an individual house, or the smaller wind turbines that would be for local businesses and homes. That's the only way to receive direct benefits at this time. And so the other option with the RFP is to do a civic grant. And we can certainly look at energy conservation initiatives, maybe replacing LEDs for our streetlights, and other energy conservation initiatives that would benefit Skokie more directly. So those are the options for that program. We also will ask for enhanced renewable energy portfolios from the bidders, but it's just not anticipated that that's going to be a cost-effective solution. But we will go ahead and put that in the RFP. And so I didn't know if I had any further questions at this time.
No further questions. I do have a comment from a resident. Mayor Van Duzen and Skokie Board of Trustees, first let me thank you for Max Slankard's sustainability presentation last meeting for restarting the village's Sustainable Environmental Advisory Commission, for recommitting to a village-wide greenhouse gas emissions audit by the end of the year, and for beginning work on the village's next sustainability plan. As was mentioned at the last board meeting, Skokie has been a sustainability leader in the past, and I hope this history continues into the future. Climate action can't wait. Tonight you're discussing the village's electrical aggregation agreement and exploring the many ways the village can collaborate with other municipalities to improve the ways Skokie residents get their energy. And the person went on to ask 2 questions, which Liz has already answered. And then I'm asking because the climate crisis requires a quick transition to 100% renewable energy by 2030, preferably. That's a huge task, but it seems like the village has an opportunity to be a leader here, especially since this agreement will impact other municipalities as well. Please do everything in your power to transition Skokie to renewable energy as soon as possible. Thank you, James Johnson, 4821 Hall Street, Skokie.
A motion on the resolution approving and authorizing an amended plan of operation and governance for the electricity aggregation program is in order. Trustee Ulrich, seconded by Trustee Klein. Are there any other comments or questions? If not, call the roll,
Trustee
please.
Roberts,
Aye.
Trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee Ulrich,
Aye.
Trustee Bromberg,
Aye.
Trustee Klein,
Aye.
Trustee Gray Keeler,
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes. Liz, thank you.
The next item is a TIF pay-as-you-go reimbursement grant for 4901 Main Street, affectionately known as Sketchbook. The primary tenant of the property at 4901 Main Street has requested assistance under the village's Downtown Science and Technology Tax Increment Financing, or TIF, District Redevelopment Plan and Project. The applicant, Mr. Sean Decker and Mr. Cesar Marone, co-owners of Common Culture Brewing Company, doing business as Sketchbook Brewing Company, have requested reimbursement for several extraordinary costs associated with construction of a brewery and tap room during the COVID-19 pandemic in the spring and summer of 2020. Staff has reviewed and confirmed the costs and is now recommending the authorization of a TIF pay-as-you-go grant to Sketchbook in an amount not to exceed $150,000. The specific categories whereby cost overruns have occurred and reimbursement is being requested include sewage line renovations and replacement, HVAC expansion, concrete flooring, plumbing, electric for boiler and cooler, metalwork, new fire hydrant, and silo and glycol chiller enclosures, among several other items. The Downtown Science and Technology TIF District will expire in 2029, and staff has been working with developers to bring a mutually equitable project to stimulate growth and investment in the area. Staff projects property taxes over the remaining life of the TIF district will exceed TIF eligible cost amounts the developer is seeking. Based upon the anticipated assessed value of the project and estimated tax rates, the project is expected to generate over $70,766 annually. Thus, the TIF pay-as-you-go grant is anticipated to be paid off no later than 2022. I concur with staff's recommendations. Mayor and board approval of the pay-as-you-go TIF reimbursement grant in an amount not to exceed $150,000 is respectfully requested.
A motion on the TIF reimbursement grant for Sketchbook Brewing is in order. Trustee Roberts, seconded by Trustee Gray Keeler. Are there any comments or questions? Trustee Gray Keeler.
I see that Sean and Cesar and Alice are all on this call. I want to congratulate you on the beautiful building that you've established. Thank Leslie and everyone else who's made this happen. And I want to compliment you also on what good community partners you've been with so many different entities in Skokie, and just it's worked out great. Congratulations. You've had a lot of trials and tribulations I know you weren't anticipating. None of us were. Great job.
Thank you, Karen.
I think the entire board seconds that. Trustee Roberts.
Likewise, Alice, Caesar, and Sean, I just wanted to say you took a abandoned or vacant lighted building and have transformed it into a high-quality local brewery and tap room, which is going to be one of the keys to our downtown success, I think. And I was in Friday night. It looks like people are coming back out, and it's going to be just a wonderful addition this summer, I think, and as the year goes on and people can get back out to your business. So I commend you for what you've done, and I just wondered if you could speak just for a minute. What I also appreciate the most is that you partnered with some of our restaurants in town who are desperately need help. Could you talk about that a little bit and maybe what your future plans are?
Sure. I could start with that. Yeah, we kicked off with the food truck initiative, which Leslie worked very hard at, and managed to have a food truck out that featured exclusively Skokie restaurants quite a few times this summer. And we have a catering space, a pop-up space, where we are scheduling restaurants to come in. We have, I believe, every single weekend now scheduled, and we are targeting a variety of Skokie restaurants. We've had already Needs and Wants, Libertad, the Crazy Greek. We're working through a kind of a list of a whole bunch of venues. Our chapter manager has been meeting with Leslie to kind of further call out possibilities amongst the Skokie restaurant community. So we're very, very much trying to do that, as well as to encourage takeout from those restaurants as well. So that's been a very active kind of partnership for us.
I also just want to briefly just commend you. I know you're trying to make your business environmentally sustainable, particularly like how you're packaging on your grains and such. That's so important, as you can hear from the public asking us questions, and so I appreciate your efforts and hope those can continue.
Yeah, Caesar and I were just having a conversation, and we're about to make an investment to make sure that we can continue to completely sustainably dispose of our spent grains, which is one of the big challenges for breweries, including buying hauling equipment and pairing with farms, basically, to be able to either compost or reuse as feed all of our spent grains, which is a real significant kind of environmental thing to do, and you know, it would be easier just to put it in the dumpster, quite frankly, but we're not going to do that. We're gonna make sure it's all recycled.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Roberts,
Aye.
trustee Sutker,
Aye.
trustee Ulrich,
Aye.
trustee Bromberg,
Aye.
trustee Klein,
Aye.
trustee Gray Keeler,
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Item E was approved as under tonight's consent agenda. Item F is regarding a request for executive session pursuant to Section 2, Paragraph C5 and C6 of the State of Illinois Open Meetings Act. A closed session is requested and to adjourn therefore.
A motion is in order. Trustee Bromberg, seconded by trustee Gray Keeler. Little hesitancy there with trustee Gray Keeler, I noticed. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Roberts,
Aye.
trustee Sutker,
Aye.
trustee Ulrich,
Aye.
trustee Bromberg,
Aye.
trustee Klein,
Aye.
trustee Gray Keeler,
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes.
That completes my report this evening.
Next item is report of our corporation counsel, Michael Large.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. Good evening to everyone. I'm joined tonight by Barb Mangler, Assistant Corp Counsel. Item A is an ordinance which was on the consent agenda at the beginning of this evening's meeting and was adopted at that time. Item B is a resolution which is on my report for first reading and board action tonight. This resolution encourages the Illinois State Legislature and Governor Pritzker to adopt and sign Senate Bill 1966, now identified as Senate Bill 568, and House Bill 3245, known as the Fix the Foyd Act. Individuals seeking to purchase a firearm must first obtain a firearm owner's identification card, a FOID card, from the Illinois State Police. We're going to refer to it hereafter as ISP. This requires a multi-step process, including a background check by the ISP, and once approved, a FOID card holder is able to buy an unlimited number of firearms. Currently, should a FOID card holder become ineligible for firearm possession, the ISP merely sends the individual a notice of revocation of the FOID card and directs the individual to give up any firearms in their possession and to submit a firearm disposition record to the ISP confirming that they have done so. This limited oversight by the ISP or other state law enforcement agencies of the FOID card program makes it easy for unqualified and illicit purchasers to escape scrutiny and obtain firearms using an expired or revoked FOID card. The FOID card is an impactful, discerning, and reasonable tool available to the state to foster greater firearm protection for our community without creating unnecessary restrictions on firearm owners. But it needs to be strengthened to have a more meaningful role in firearm protection. Key elements of this Fix the Foyd Act are: first, to reduce the FOID card expiration period from 10 years to a shorter 5-year term, requiring firearm owners to submit updated information more frequently. Second, requiring FOID applicants to submit fingerprints as part of their application process. Third, requiring action by the ISP to remove firearms once a FOID card is revoked. Next, increasing the FOID card fee from $10 every 10 years to $20 every 5 years to better fund the ISP enforcement resources. Skokie is a record of vigorous and rational advocacy for safety regarding the ownership and use of firearms. Senate Bill 1966, now identified as Senate Bill 568, and House Bill 3245, referred to as Fix the Void Act, would strengthen Illinois law and addresses many of the gaps in the current firearm law as it stands at this time. Mayor, I request board action on this resolution tonight.
A motion on the resolution as presented by the Corporation Council is in order. Trustee Roberts, seconded by Trustee Sucker. Are there any comments or questions? If Trustee Roberts.
I just was curious of how this came to our attention, and our local senators and state representatives or any other municipalities in our area supporting this this bill.
Thank you, Trustee. First of all, we tend to, within the Corp Council office, track legislation as it's moving along and as it's bubbling up. In this regard, we were aware of it. We were aware of it back when it was a House bill as well. But in particular, in our ongoing communications, which I regularly have with our state senator, Ram Villavaram, and as well as our other state reps, he particularly at this juncture was encouraging some help and support in this bill. He is, in fact, one of the sponsors of the bill in the Senate, and is very energetic in putting forth efforts to get it passed. And so it's in that partnership that we also felt it was appropriate to move forward.
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Roberts,
Aye.
Trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee Ulrich,
Aye.
Trustee Bromberg, Trustee Bromberg,
Aye.
Trustee Klein,
I also vote aye.
Trustee Gray Keeler,
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes.
Thank you, Mayor. That would conclude my report for this evening.
Thank you. The next item this evening is the 2021-2022 CDBG Public Hearing Number 4. Carrie Haberstich. Carrie?
Hello there, good evening. Tonight's public hearing is being conducted to obtain final input to the Villages Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, one-year action plan for program year 2021, which is also known as fiscal year 2022. Plan approval, public hearings are usually held in March of each year, following the 3 other public hearings held in the preceding months of December, January, and February. This hearing will conclude with the board's formal consideration and anticipated approval of the action plan prior to the submittal of this plan to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. This hearing was legally advertised in a local newspaper on January 28th, including a list of the statutory goals of the CDBG program and the proposed projects and activities for the action plan. Preliminary draft copies of the plan were available at skokie.org for a 30-day public review period, and no comments were submitted by the public, at least not yet. And share screen. All right. There we go. Just to a little history, the purpose of our 5-year consolidated plan is a bigger picture of a 5-year window of what we hope to accomplish with CDBG funds. And the purpose of the 1-year action plan is it's basically a funding application for HUD, so we can actually spend the funds on assisting low and moderate income residents. The vision statement for our program is The program will provide a better quality of life for low and moderate income residents through bricks and mortar projects and service activities. We have a total of three categories of 5 goals, primarily capital improvements because of that bricks and mortar element, but we also support public services and then planning administration of the program. Objectives include ensuring the housing is affordable, accessible, and sustainable, looking at owner-occupied homes, affordable rental apartments, etc. Improving infrastructure such as street resurfacing in low and moderate income neighborhoods, and then also sidewalk replacement on a rotating area throughout Skokie. Also improving facilities such as construction and rehabilitation, so organizations can provide improved, expanded, or more affordable services with other funding sources. And then also providing financial assistance for public services and programs. So for planning and administration, it's preparing plans, year-end reports, and just day-to-day administration of the program. And our CDBG funding focus is helping Skokie's most vulnerable residents, either directly or via not-for-profit organizations. We budgeted 600, as you recall from last month, we've budgeted $600,000 in entitlement funding, $50,000 for unallocated funds, and over $7,100 in program income. And believe it or not, at 4 p.m., I heard from our HUD rep, and we were very close. Skokie is scheduled to receive $602,373, which will bump the total budget up to $659,508. Since we built in that 20% flexibility of plus or minus 20% of that 600,000, we will not need to do a substantial amendment. It is less than what we've received the last few years, but fortunately, with our $600,000 budget, we are able to proceed with a little bit of extra. So for the flexibility that we built into the draft plan, the social worker social worker position was to get 15% of the balance towards that public services cap. The home improvement program was, we were planning on adding additional funding to that program up to the $90,000 total request, and then adding any balance beyond that to our neighborhood enhancement program. So with the $602,000 plus, it won't be a huge distribution of funds. We will add $355 to the social worker position and over $2,000 to the home improvement program, and the funding wasn't significant enough to add more to our neighborhood enhancement program. And another update regarding the Asian Human Services, the air purifiers for their building and Lockwood and Dempster. We were able to confirm that we can use our CDBG CV, the CARES Act funding, for their project. So per the flexibility that we had built in to the budget and the draft action plan, we plan on using the $4,500, spreading it out between Turning Point, $2,500 for Turning Point, and $2,000 for Search. We deeply discounted their project, so it was just another addition to their project costs, and hopefully we can cover closer to their the 75% amount of their project and reducing their match, but still staying within that 25%. So the next step is requesting approval of the action plan tonight. Although we do have additional time, since we know the amount as of today, we are able to submit the action plan on our typical deadline of Wednesday, March 17th. Are there any questions?
Let's get a motion on the one-year action plan for the CDBG program for program year 2021-2022 is in order. Trustee Roberts, seconded by Trustee Klein. Now, are there any comments or questions of Carrie? If not, please call the roll.
Trustee Roberts,
Aye.
trustee Sutker,
Aye.
Trustee Ulrich,
Aye.
trustee Bromberg,
Aye.
trustee Klein,
Aye.
trustee Gray Keeler,
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen.
Aye, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Carrie, thank you. Great job as always.
Thank you.
The concluding item this evening is citizen comments. John?
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, my name is Denise Beal Adonzi. I am a Skokie resident and a taxpayer. I live at 8054 Niles Avenue. I do not want my tax dollars to be used to fund a project that could display the most marginalized members of our community. Thank you. I support body cameras in Skokie, protect our residents and police officers. Accountability with body-worn cameras. Black, brown, indigenous, trans, Asian, and other marginalized populations are targeted disproportionately. Complementary of the 8 can't wait policy, 90% of the population supports body-worn cameras. Transparency for the police force keeps police officers safe. They have support to back up their actions. Leslie Nathan, 7700 Block, Kedville. Dear Skokie Village Board, I am submitting this letter in support of body-worn cameras for the Skokie Police Department. Skokie is a diverse community and the Village Board should do its best to protect its residents. The research across the country has demonstrated that people of color, particularly black and brown, as well as other marginalized populations, are disproportionately targeted by reoccurring injustices of policing and by the police utilization of lethal force. It is time to be proactive because one life lost is one life too many. The utilization of body-worn cameras is a start to keeping our communities safe, allows for transparency, and is complementary of the 8 Can't Wait project. When an officer is equipped with a body-worn camera, it raises his or her awareness, their colleagues as well as the community civilians during their encounters, which in turn will improve policing. The body-worn cameras will help deter violence when officers adhere to the guidelines, wearing their assigned cameras and keeping the cameras on, as well as the use de-escalation strategies in lieu of lethal force. A transparent police department contributes to the safety of the community it serves. Sincerely, Sylvia Romero. She is a resident of Waukegan, Illinois, at the address of 2350 Choctaw Road. Skokie has an opportunity to help protect both its police and its citizens. Having a visual story of what could be a terrible incident might well add credence to the points that any citizen or any police officer make. Can each and every member of the board state that they know from firsthand experience what it's like to be a police officer approaching a robbery in progress and a black or brown citizen walking down the street on their way home and being stopped by the police? You can't. Most of us can't. So the next question is, do you care? Do you care enough about our police and all our citizens to require and enforce the use of body cameras by our police officers? It is my expectation that you do. I care and I vote. Elaine Vincent, 4757 Howard Street. Dear Mayor Van Dusen and Village Board of Trustees, I am writing this public comment to voice my concern over the lack of body-worn cameras for our Skokie police officers. It is surprising that the village continues to drag their feet on a matter that is so important for the safety of our community and the protection of our officers from wrongful accusations. I have had the privilege of serving on the recent Skokie Police Use of Force Policy Task Force as a community representative. Reviewing the use of force data provided to us reinforced my pride in our Skokie Police Department. Their jobs are difficult and they do it well. However, when it comes to policy, there are many gaps that put both our officers and our community members at risk. Much of the language is ambiguous, making implications of policy without explicitly giving clear policy directives. For this reason, I support the policy changes recommended by Skokie United through the 8 Can't Wait initiative. Our country is in the midst of a policing crisis. Community trust is at an all-time low, and the time for policy change is upon us. Each community needs to be working tirelessly to ensure our officers are properly trained, have strong policies to back up their training, and have all of the tools necessary to protect themselves and the communities they serve. Budgetary restrictions cannot be an excuse during times of crisis. Neighboring police departments have been able to find the resources to equip their officers with body-worn cameras. Skokie should be no exception. Thank you for your time and consideration. Nancy Graham. Dear Mayor Van Duzen and Village Board of Trustees, nearly 9 months ago, community members held the vigil of Black Lives Matter in Oakton Park, a powerful event that served as a reckoning for our village of the ongoing and very public police violence against black people in America. Village leadership, including the mayor, corporation council, village manager, and members of the board of trustees, attended the event, took a knee for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, and made affirming statements that change in policing is needed and is of an urgent nature. To date, there have been no concrete changes made that both emphasize the policing of black, brown, indigenous, trans, and marginalized groups, and how we improve upon the community's demand for transparency and accountability in public safety. Just this past March, a young black man, Demetrius Bogan, was shot by Skokie police in the parking lot of the 7-Eleven at Oakton and Crawford. The official police report and the victim's family differ on the events that led to the officer-involved shooting. Thankfully, the victim survived. While the village released video of the incident, due to Skokie police not being equipped with body-worn cameras, the community was not able to see what transpired and led to the decision to discharge a firearm. The village spent a considerable amount of money on police vehicle dashboard cameras with 360-degree view capability, but video released does not show how the incident escalated. When the village has been asked why our police officers do not have body-worn cameras, the response has been consistent, that there's no room in the budget. While many of our neighboring municipalities have obtained and deployed this technology, i.e. Evanston, Park Ridge, Des Plaines, by finding space in the budget or looking for external support, the village has not made similar efforts, despite 90% of the American public supporting this tool. The affordability argument does not carry much weight when the village unanimously and without comment approved $55,000 for military-style tactical gear this past November. If the village needs assistance obtaining funds for body cameras each year, the federal government's Bureau of Justice Assistance awards local municipal proposals for body-worn cameras. This past year, BJA awarded 41 proposals totaling more than $8 million. Body cameras are a critical piece of technology that not only provides transparency and accountability, but protects both the officers as public servants and the public. And while we must find a path to purchasing and assigning this technology, we must also create policy that requires officers to turn on their cameras and apply penalties to officers that either fail to activate their cameras or actively turn them off. Let's work together to institute body-worn cameras for all officers immediately, rather than wait until the law requires it in 2025. Thank you, Skokie United Policy Team, Matt Timken, Lawrence Walters, Annie Wershaw, Brian Williams. Dear Mayor Van Duzen and the Village Board of Trustees, I'm writing this to urge you to enforce the use of body cams for our Skokie Police Department. The criminal justice reform bill that Pritzker just passed mandates it in 2025, but we should not wait for that to make it happen in Skokie. You've heard many of the groups in Skokie speak about it at the Public Safety Commission meetings, along with many public comments tonight and in previous nights' board meetings. 90% of the population support body-worn cameras. This is very important to the Skokie community, and you have the ability to make it happen immediately so that our police officers are safe, they have support to back up their actions, and there's also transparency for the police force. This will also be complementary to the 8 Can't Wait policies that many in the Skokie community are also pushing for. Our black, brown, indigenous, trans, and Asian community members are being targeted disproportionately, and this will help with accountability and keep all our community members safe. Let's do the right thing here. Nicole Reynolds. Dear Mayor Van Duzen and trustees, I'm writing to urge you to implement body cams in the Skokie Police Department immediately. As we know, this has been mandated by the state to be enacted in the next few years, but I think we can do better than that. I participated in the last use of force policy review meeting and was struck by the theme that folks came back to again and again, the importance of trust. And while the Skokie Police Department has invested $280,000 into a COPS vehicle meant to support community outreach, I would argue that trust is not built by pushing the police out into the community in this way. In fact, trust has to be earned, and that is done when responsibility is taken for harm caused, both systematically and specifically, and true accountability is prioritized. The reason we're having these important discussions, and the reason Mayor Van Duzen signed the Abatement Pledge, and the reason we're reviewing the use of force policy is because it has become absolutely undeniable that policing in America has been militarized, and the militarization has most significantly caused harm to communities of color and especially black communities. It has become undeniable that the harm to black communities through policing is historical, going back to the slave patrols and carried through to the current day. So when we talk about repairing the relationship between police and the community through pickup basketball games or SROs or charity events, are we not essentially forcing those who've been harmed and who've justifiably been raised to fear the police into a situation where that trauma is triggered and their safety is arguably deprioritized? Are we not asking them to suffer in order to perform a role in a sort of public relations effort meant to make the police seem less scary? But here's the problem. That fear of the police is based in truth. It's based on the lived experience of black people, in particular in the country, and yes, even in our village. And so any effort to make things right need to begin with an acknowledgement of that fact. And then instead of demanding trust, trust must be earned. In other words, the onus is on the institution of policing to earn the trust back. In simple terms, the way to seem less scary is to be less scary. Body cameras are clearly an incredibly important part of earning trust. Body cameras mean you're not afraid of what they might show, that you believe you have nothing to hide, and that if you do make a mistake, you're willing to take responsibility. This is just one piece of earning trust, though. I was encouraged to hear Chief Baker speak about the fact that the Skokie Police is considering alternate forms of response, that they have consulted with mental health professionals, but there is so much more to be done, and it shouldn't be all up to the police. As a village, it is our responsibility to stop using the police as the catch-all for every issue faced by our community members. We need to make sure we take care of each other by prioritizing affordable housing, food security, a living wage, mental health resources, resources for the disabled, mutual aid, and so on. It takes a village, and we can be that village if we are willing to see each other in our full humanity. Sincerely, Maggie Vandermeer. Dear Village of Skokie leaders, you all are the leaders and policymakers elected to represent the community and to concentrate on policy issues that respond to citizens' needs and wishes. You are to ensure that our entire community is being served. Many members in our community, including yourself, including myself, want every member of the Skokie Police Department to wear a body camera while on duty. Without surveillance cameras and smartphones, the nation would not be privy to what really happened with George Floyd, 46, Mitchell Brown, 18, or Tamar Rice, 12. Body cameras help collaborate the facts in any encounter of concern. Excessive force complaints are resolved more quickly because there is footage. Body cameras improve officer and citizen safety. People behave better when they know they are being recorded. Finally, body cameras increase the public's trust and confidence in law enforcement because the footage from the cameras will record what really happens. Body cameras should be worn by every on-duty police officer. Thanks, Jasmine Sabagula. To the Board of Trustees and the Mayor. Accountability, this is what Skokie residents are looking for from the Skokie Police Department. Body cameras are a small step in the right direction. Police that wear body cameras are less likely to use excessive force. Objective footage of encounters between residents and police would benefit both police officers and civilians. This was certainly the case for Demetrius Bogan, and his mother has inspired me to push for something so small, but that could have made such a big difference in the family's life. If that change could be so great for just one family, then it certainly could benefit many more people in our community. It is already going to be implemented on a state level. Why not show you are listening now and respond to so many concerned citizens by taking a step forward toward action before 2025? I hope that as our representatives, you will respond to the public comments, not just by ending the meeting abruptly, but by acknowledging the legacies of violence perpetrated by police and responding to the pain that is here with you in this virtual room right now. Thank you for your time and service. Molly Greening, 4821 Hall Street, Skokie. I think it might be helpful to share some information regarding the topics that were addressed in those previous comments. The Village of Skokie supports body cameras, and as the mayor has repeatedly said, will initiate the program, including in the update to the Obama Foundation pledge. We've been working with our state legislators on identifying an annual village and state funding stream to make it happen. The state legislators have told us that such a grant program is a part of their study for various trailer legislation that is in the works. We are preparing the annual budget proposal for the village's fiscal year 2021 and 2022, which will include a stage 1 pilot program for beginning the body camera program. Police Chief Brian Baker will give the Public Safety Commission his comments on March 17th, which will include body cameras among other issues. In September 2020, the Commission invited Skokians to express themselves on policing policy and has conducted 5 public hearings since then. The aim of those hearings has been to give anyone wishing to participate in this review an opportunity to share concerns and suggestions with the members of the Commission. 16 separate groups are participating or being heard. In addition, after Chief Baker makes his presentation, the Commission will issue a public report and the Board of Trustees will take up the recommendations of the Commission. I should note, when this process commenced, the Public Safety Commission invited representatives of the Human Relations Commission to join them in this important community project. There's a few more citizen comments. Hello, my name is Hagap Salukian, and I'm writing to express my disappointment and that of the Armenian community in Skokie and beyond in Mayor Van Duzen's decision to issue a one-sided Kajuli Commemoration Day proclamation condemning Armenians for massacring Azerbaijan. The proclamation painted a very one-sided picture of this conflict. I urge the mayor to rescind the proclamation, which is very hurtful to Armenians, especially in light of Azerbaijan's brutal war against Armenians last fall. Hagap Salukian. Good evening, dear board members and trustees. I have been a Skokie resident for over 20 years. I'm very concerned that Mayor Van Duzen signed the Kajuli proclamation last week. How could such a diverse place like my lovable Skokie signing the proclamation not only on a such controversial event, but also on something that is part of anti-American propaganda, especially given after a brutal war against Armenia just 4 months ago and a number of hate crimes committed against Armenians in the U.S. It sounds like the village got biased, one-sided, illuminated information about the massacre and was told it is indisputable true. This is not the truth, but a cut of context and not honestly described story. I would like to ask Skokie to search more about that tragedy to avoid being involved in a history falsification. Sincerely, Vitally. The mayor's proclamation is intellectually and morally bankrupt. No impartial historian would agree with him. Why would Skokie take the side of the most corrupt dictatorship in the world, a regime which terrorizes its citizens who dare to speak out, and which in the past 6 months joined forces with Turkey to attempt to continue Turkey's genocidal campaign against Armenians. The proclamation is an abject embarrassment for Skokie and should be immediately rescinded. Ken Hatchikon. This item, the mayor has been in contact, and there is a congressional resolution that may be considered in the future. Another item from citizen comments is, if we can't, this came in during the meeting this evening, along with several of the other comments this evening, but this one states, if we can't refinance the 10-year bonds, could the village issue new bonds for larger amounts and longer time periods at these very low interest rates? The village wouldn't spend this money yet, but uses it to pay down and replace the higher interest bonds when they come in. So the village's philosophy of issuing debt is to judiciously issue debt when it makes sense for both the market conditions as well as the lifespan of what is being, of the expense. And so we continuously take a look at when it makes sense to issue debt and when to refinance debt. We have a track record of refinancing when the village is able to save money. Currently, we're actually looking at issuing debt for some potential future applications, and so some more information will be forthcoming as we continue that research. And that completes the citizen comments this evening.
Thank you. And let me reiterate that in my report on the status of our hearings before the Public Safety Commission to the Obama Foundation, I did report that we will be doing body cameras. And as John mentioned, we will have in the budget proposal for this next year money set aside to begin the program. So this is something that we have been discussing for a number of months now. And now that we have the state legislation, and our state legislators have told us that they will be working with us to establish a funding source. So we will proceed with that. A motion to adjourn to executive session. I believe it's Trustee Roberts this evening.
So moved.
We will go into executive session.